Hi and welcome to Squizz.com, the connected marketplace. Today I'll be showing the latest and greatest changes we've made to the Squizz.com connector software in the 1.14 release. Squizz.com connector is a free piece of software developed by us that allows a business to connect any of its business software, databases, spreadsheets or files storing data into the Squizz.com and Todex platforms, allowing businesses to save and make more money by automating data management and transfer between its systems and other supplier and customer systems. Now you understand what the connector can do, let's look at the changes we've made to the connector in the 1.14 release. This release adds improvements to the dataset feature to allow categories to be assigned to category tree IDs. This allows data for multiple category trees to be managed and exported from a dataset. By setting up multiple category trees, it allows businesses to provide multiple ways for users to navigate through categories to find products they are looking for. Watch the 1.10 connector release video if you are unsure what datasets are, and links to it can be found in this YouTube's long description. Additionally, we've added new fields to sales orders imported into the connector to be able to set external location data against orders. This allows third-party location information such as nominated dealers, on-sellers, suppliers or pickup points to be specified in an order, which is very handy to note when a customer has designated for ordered products to be picked up from a certain location, or that a separate organization should receive a fee for an order. Next, we've increased the timeouts for when data exports run to push data into connected e-commerce platforms. This helps when the connector has to push larger amounts of records or is exporting data across slower internet connections. The extended timeouts reduce the chance of exports failing, ensuring that the data gets pushed across. Lastly, we've made improvements to the Micronet Distribution adapter within the connector when it exports account product pricing data from the Micronet system to be able to group contract-based pricing, helping it to reduce the amount of pricing records that need to be exported. Now, before I get started in showing the latest improvements, feel free to subscribe to the Squizz.com YouTube channel to stay informed when we release new great functionality in the future. In the 1.14 connector release, we've added a new field to be able to set a unique identifier against category records to denote a category tree that a category can be assigned to. So within the connector, if we click on the datasets tab, I already have an existing dataset that has been created here. If we view and open that dataset, this dataset already has a list of products that has been imported or set up within it. Now, if we go into the categories tab, within the category sub-tab, the new column that we've added to the dataset is called Key Category Tree ID. And this is where we can specify a category tree that categories are assigned to. So in our example here, we have 5 different categories that we may wish to assign products to. And these are the categories that users will navigate through on websites or connected e-commerce platforms in order to find the products that they are looking for. So we have 2 categories here called bags and clothes. And this denotes the kinds of products that could be related to these categories. The other 3 categories we have here are based on brand. So we have the Chanel brand, the Gucci brand, and the Camelback brand as well. If users know the brand of the kind of products that they are looking for, then they could click on these categories then to view those associated products. So what we want to do within the dataset here is we want to assign one set of categories to one category tree and another set of categories to a separate category tree. Within the Key Category Tree ID field, we need to put in a unique identifier of the category tree. Now, the associated systems where this category tree data is being imported to will be able to provide you what the unique identifiers for those trees are. Those systems could allow you to provide or set a key category, a tree there. So if we take an example, we could set the key category tree of the bags and clothes. We could set them to an identifier of 1. And for the brand-based categories, we could give that a category tree identifier of brands. So we just assign that to each of these categories. When all this data is exported out from the dataset and imported into the associated e-commerce platform, those platforms can look at this column in order to work out which categories need to be assigned to which trees, which in turn will determine where those categories appear and how users can navigate through to find the categories that they are looking for. So if we were to create another category, such as if we're selling Camelback bags, we may also be selling ABS backpacks. We would assign that to the brand's category tree, also give that a code, and it's as simple as that. That category can now appear under the category tree. Within the Find dropdown, we can also search for categories that are associated to a given category tree. If we choose the Key category tree ID filter, then type in the value of the key category tree that we want to search for and click the find button. We can only see categories assigned to that brand's category tree. So this is a useful filter. If somebody's managing setting up this category data, they only want to work with categories assigned to one tree at a time. This is an easy way to do that. Once we're happy with our data, we need to be able to export this category tree ID column data. If we go into any of the adapters, there is now a key category tree ID field which we can export with category data. So if we just go into an example adapter here, this is a generic adapter, click on the data exports option and click on the category export. If we just assign that to such as an ODBC or a compatible database, you'll see in the database fields that there is another field that is available now. Is called the key category tree ID. So if we're getting it out from a database, we can specify the column name in the table that stores categories, such as it could be called a category tree ID in a different business system. Then we just need to specify that there and then activate that field in order to then get that key category tree data coming out. And if we look at other adapters, so for example, if we look at the Micronet adapter, in the categories data export, you can see there is the key category tree ID field there available. So it's across any adapters that export out categories or category product records where this new field has been added and can be enabled to be set for the category data being exported out. Another improvement we added to the connector is to do with sales orders and having additional fields available within sales orders. So if we go click on the sales orders tab and click on the order number of an existing sales order, this opens up the sales order details where we can view all the details of the sales order that has been imported into the connector software. If we click under the dispatch and freight tab, we can see that there are now 3 additional fields that can have data set for a sales order. This is external location code, external location name, and external key location ID. Using each of these fields allows us to specify an external location that this sales order may be linked to. And what I mean by an external location, and a location external to the business where the sales order is being created against, where this order could be delivered to, picked up from, or where fees or stipends, other information needs to be linked back from one sales order to another company or another entity. So if we take an example when this order is being created, that the customer was able to specify a supplier where they wanted to pick up the ordered goods from, in the external location code, we could have an ID of a supplier that is set up as a location within the associated accounting or business systems. So we could have supplier 001. That supplier could have a name. It could be Lee's hardware store. And that location could have a unique identifier, such as 001, within our business or accounting system that location is defined at. By using this data, we can now look at this order and go, the order is being assigned to Lee's hardware store, which is an external location from our own business, and we need to deliver goods to Lee's hardware store instead of delivering it directly to the end user's location. From this data, we could potentially pay Lee's hardware store for managing the order, or we could charge them in order to pay for the goods, and then when the customer comes into their store, then the customer will pay them. These additional fields provide us with a lot of flexibility when we want to link separate organizations or entities to organizations, entities, locations to a sales order, and then we can run reports as well as make business decisions on the data that is available within the order. Now, to get this data into an associated accounting or enterprise resource planning system, there's a few options that we have made available to the connector. So if we go back to the adapters and messages, in any generic adapter, we can use the generic adapter to import sales orders into any compatible databases, data files, connected web services. If we click on the Data Imports tab, and we choose the sales orders import type, and we assign that to our associated data source, in the data fields, you'll now see in the list the 3 fields that have been added: the external key location ID, the external location code, and the external location name. So we can now go off, and wherever we're saving this data to, we can provide the names of the columns in our associated business system, and then we can do the same for that, activate those fields and choose the kind of data that needs to be imported into the table where that data is stored if this was a database, for example. So there's flexibility once again in here to be able to choose if we want to save this external location data against orders in the appropriate systems. That's how we set it up for the generic adapter. If we set up the MyOb Exo adapter, Then click on the settings for the MyAppExo adapter. Within the adapter, there's a setting here called Sales Order Dispatch Field Format. So what we can do is when a sales order is imported into the MyAppExo system, when it saves data to the dispatch field, the external location data, it will be placed into the dispatch field that is available in sales orders from that system. And we've got hooks that are available here. So they've got the curly brackets around the name and the external location code, as well as the external key location ID, where we can specify what pieces of data about the external location we want to put into the dispatch field. So then that allows us to run reports and do other things in Exo in order to utilize the data coming in for the external location. And in the future, we can look at other adapters on how to get this data into the associated systems. A small useful improvement we added to the connector is when we're exporting data for any adapters, if we click on the Export Routines button, this allows us to choose to run data exports where we can export different types of data. So if we want to export product data to an associated e-commerce platform, we just need to select that export and click the run once off, or we can schedule it in to run at a particular date and time on an ongoing basis. Now the improvement we've added is that we increase the timeout where the connector will wait for the data to be sent across to the associated platform before the connector gives up. Now previously for most data exports, that timeout period was set at 120 seconds. It was set at 100 seconds or a minute 40. But now we've increased that to 200 seconds, which is 3 minutes 20 seconds to export the data out. Now, for most data exports, that is not going to be a problem. That's a very long time to import what is typically small amounts of data. But for some specific exports, we've increased the timeouts even further. So the product pricing data exports, typically there's a lot of pricing data that gets exported out. They're over 10 minutes in size. We've increased the export make model mappings timeout. That is increased to 35 minutes because you can have lots of products assigned to lots of makes and models, especially if you're working in certain industries. And as well as the exporting of the product account pricing data, that is also 35-minute timeouts. These extended timeouts allow the connector to wait for longer for the data to be sent across the internet and imported into the associated e-commerce platform, and for that platform then to return a successful response. Now the timeouts are here to make sure that the connector is not waiting forever for these exports to complete, because sometimes the internet connections can sever or the e-commerce platforms never return a response due to a myriad of reasons for that. The last improvement we've added to the 1.14 connector release has to do with the Micronet Distribution adapter. So this adapter allows us to export contract-based pricing from the Micronet Distribution system. If I go into the Micronet Distribution system settings window and click on the data exporting tab, a new setting that we've added to the adapter is this setting called Group Contract Category Discount Pricing, and it either has the options of yes or no. And what this setting does is it says whether or not the adapter, when it wants to get out contract-based pricing for specific customer accounts known as debtors in Micronet system, when it exports that data out, whether or not it should try to group the pricing together to try to reduce the amount of pricing records that are exported out. To show you an example of how this works in effect, if we look at the Micronet Distribution system, it has the concept of being able to set up contracts. Contracts allow us to set prices for specific customers when they buy certain products. A typical way that most accounting and ERP systems work is where you first set price level prices, you assign customers to these different price levels, and maybe for a handful of customers, you want to give them different pricing, such as discounts or extra charges that are different from the price levels, such as if you're doing deals with certain customers. So within the Micronet system here, we can set up contracts, and contracts we can say which customers these contracts apply to. And as part of that, we can say which products are assigned to the contracts. One of the things that the Micronet system can do is apply discounts in contracts against certain categories. So if we look at an example here, we've got a rule that's set up is that we're going to provide discounts on the price level pricing for a given category, such as this 109G1 here. So we've got different quantity breaks, so we're going to discount by 92% when the customer orders 500 for all the products that are assigned within this 109G1 category. And we can set different discounts for different quantity breaks for all the products assigned to this one category. Now, if we do this across a large set of products, and in this example, we can discount against all the categories of products assigned to, and when we do this, that the adapter pulling out the pricing needs to get out the entire inventory list for all the products that are assigned to this contract, and all the discount breaks. If we sold many tens of thousands of products applied against the 16 different price levels that the Micronet system supports, we can get up in the tens of millions of pricing records that the adapter within the connector needs to generate. And most e-commerce platforms very much struggle to be able to import tens of millions of pricing records. In the adapter, if we turn this setting on to yes, then what the adapter will do is it will try to find if there are multiple contracts within the Micronet system that have the same discounts applied against the same category. It will bundle those prices together. By doing so, it will reduce the amount of pricing records that need to be exported out. In our example, we could have tens of contracts that allow for discounts across our entire inventory set. And if we're selling tens of thousands of products, this one change could reduce the pricing records from being exporting out tens or hundreds of millions of prices down to only a couple of million prices. The only time we want to turn this setting to yes is if within the Micronet distribution system, we are setting up category discount break prices that allow discounting across many products in a category, and that there are many contracts that have the same discounts for the same category. Now, if we don't have that kind of situation set up in the Micronet system, then this setting, it might as well be set to no, because otherwise the adapter has to do more processing in order to do more calculations, in order to do the grouping, which takes longer for the adapter to do. This kind of style where we're using contracts to effectively discount across an entire inventory, it may be a very unique case. It's not typical of what most businesses do, where they usually use the price levels against products in order to manage that, as opposed to contracts. So this improvement, depending on how the data is configured in the Micronet system, could be the difference of the adapter having to export tens upon tens of millions of prices, and it could be reducing it by a factor of 100, or it could make very little difference if there is more what we call entropy, or there's more randomness in the pricing data that is exported out, and the adapter isn't able to group contract prices. Before turning this set on, you need to have a look at the Micronet system, look at the way that the contract data is set up, and that will determine whether or not this setting should be left to no or should be turned on to yes. That's a wrap up of the 1.14 connector release. For more details, you can also view the connector documentation at squizz.com/docs-connector. Thanks for taking the time to listen. Until next time, have fun with the connector.